So call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:18 on December 16th. And first on the agenda is Michelle Holton with the financial review.
Yes. Being through November, we are 42% through the budget year. As far as revenues, we are coming in at 54.6%. One item to note is the SDC is at 100, it's account 40600, the last listing on the income. That is the system development charge, which is always slated to go to the SDC capital reserve. So we have had significant SDC payments so far this year, but even with taking that out, we'd be over 51% of budget versus the 42% of where we are in the calendar year. So we're doing well as far as revenues go. I had noted that the meter hydrant charges were a little higher than just accounting for the rate change. So I looked into it with Amy, and she had discovered multi-unit properties that had not been set up properly in the system historically, so they weren't being charged the multiple hydrant and meter charges that they should. So we've since corrected that, so that was accounting for the little bit higher meter and hydrant charges. Those are usually pretty steady. So we determined what was going on there, and the domestic water, the first account 40100, that is up higher than we were last year. We were at 43.7%, so just above the timing factor for where we were in budget. So that fluctuates with usage. We have had the extensions, some extensions added on, different properties. There's been a lot going on as far as adding on new customers. And I think just in general, the usage is gonna be different from year to year. So that accounts for where we are there. And you can also see account 40413, which is the entrances, which goes along with the SDC charge when a new customer comes on. That is well above, going to be well above where we budgeted. We've already exceeded budget, but that's one of those items we did know about some properties that may be coming on, but they may have come on 2 years later. Things are very changeable as far as their plans. So we're still seeing that pretty steadily going on. It may slow a bit with the winter, but we have heard from a lot of the local folks involved in the different properties that we're aware of that things are going to keep moving forward throughout the year. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue side of things?
Yeah, I was just wondering about 40412, the service charge for backflow. Is that just a timing issue too, that we haven't conducted some typical amount of backflows at this point?
Yes, that's not something that's going to be smooth
not
throughout
yet.
the
It's
year.
not
It
a
has different,
constant.
it has
Okay.
the different times.
Okay.
Yep. So that one, we have some pretty good historical numbers, so
And what
we
was the
should be in
grant
line
revenue?
there.
40500?
The grant revenue, part of what's included in there is the 405K matching grant, which when we built the budget, we were not aware of that we were going to be granted that grant. So that's the issue there.
Good.
As far as the expense side, for salaries, we're fairly well in line. We have the officer salary issue we've mentioned before with changing our structure as far as the budget on our secretarial services. And that will be adjusted for in the new budget that we're getting underway with for 2021. Administrative overtime, that's much more in check than we had been last year, and that's primarily a timing issue. Our time is focused on audit, budget, and otherwise it's part of the month-end process. We may end up being a little bit over. Some of it's being offset between Amy and myself, but there are just some billing and more involved customer service issues that she has the technical knowledge of CUSI and the experience to handle. And we've had some of those come up too. So we will factor in a little bit more time for her in this coming budget. This was built primarily on my time. On-call pay, account 50203, is at 55.8%. But that was another item that, in changing how we are doing our rounds and our on-call staff responsibilities, the weekly payout for being on call was increased. And at the time of building the budget, we were not aware that we would be making those changes. Now, as far as page 2 and our other expenses, most of them we've touched on. They are timing issues, just the time of the year when we would purchase something, or it are things that can be purchased at any time and just happen to purchase earlier in the year. Office equipment, account 70010. We got some computers that we had budgeted for. We just got them at the earlier half of the year. So that's putting us a little bit further along than just looking at the breakout of the budget based on time. Not everything is smoothly paid out. Does anyone have any particular questions on any of the expense line items? As I said, most are under. Those that aren't, we've touched on before, and are timing issues or things that we are aware of.
The vehicle maintenance at 69%.
The registrations come due.
Right.
Yep, those come due in September, so we're always going to see that. Sure. Any other particular line items? Okay, going on to page 3 then. We currently have our net income at almost $835,000. Last year, it was only at $161,000. Part of that would be our rate change. Part of that is the timing of some of the expenses. We haven't gotten underway with any of the capital budget expense projects. For this set of reports, I did add in the detail on budget. The carrying through the monthly interest accrual, we haven't done yet, but that's slated for this next month. So we added in the detail for all the salaries, for the insurance, and then also for account 90000 capital budget expense. We listed all the individual that was grouped before just as a one number of 215.5, and now we have all the different projects.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the individual projects, and all of them, or a handful of them, should be getting underway in the next couple of months. So we'll see some expenses there, but overall, for the net income, we were, as I said, 835 right now versus 161 last year. Expenses overall are down 9.5%. So we were at total expenses of $1,404,000 last year, and we're at $1,271,000 at the same time this year.
I just had a question.
Sure.
The work that Drummond Woodson's doing under professional legal fees, would that be under 81951.2? That 883, is that the?
I'm not sure how they're being coded. Would they be being coded as
I was just curious. I don't know.
just PFOA, or are they being specific to?
It's not under PFOH, so I think it's under just, the
Just
general
other.
legal,
That's under general, okay.
the word serve.
So that's what, the last line item here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be under other, that will show up under other if it's
Okay.
general.
All right. I'm just curious what budget that was going against, so that helps.
And as with the previous, we're doing better on revenues and expenses at this point in the year. As we get closer to, usually, as we get closer to the fourth quarter commencing, we'll start looking at any items that are over and above that we won't change the budget because we do want to see it where we are over or under. So we'll leave that for the historical reference. But I keep an offline set of books that we know that a certain account comes up with something that we hadn't budgeted for. We just track where we consider ourselves paying for it so we don't overexpend the bottom line budget.
So line 40407, the miscellaneous income, is that, again, it's just a timing issue that it's quite a bit off from last year at this point?
We had a vehicle that was paid out last year from any of the insurance proceeds. That's where we would put it. So that was a very unexpected item. We put the 10,000 in there. We have a handful of things that are sort of semi-regular. Sometimes we get premium holidays, Primex calls them, and they'll pay us back from prior years, but we don't. It can vary greatly. So usually that's an account we just sort of put that figure in there, looking at historically what we've seen, and that can come at any time during the year. And often the unusual items are what's going to throw it over the budget, but we keep that at a low level.
And it looks like office assistant, 50111. Again, just a timing thing. Did we not have that position last year at this point?
No, that position came on, not when it was prior to the budget being, it was after the budget being finalized, that some factors of that position were worked out. So that's a new role that's been on, this will be the first year that we'll have her on full-time.
Okay.
And the last page of the reporting with the bank balances. We have added the escrow account is the last account listing that we're just keeping funds there for retainage, future retainage payout. All of the other, and actually we did receive the trustee of trust funds reporting, so we have all the interest and fees recorded and market value change recorded there. Sometimes the timing in the those statements can be after month end.
So this is retainage for 4 and 5?
Yes, for the work
That's
that.
going in an escrow account?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll retain the account, but the interest bearing
Yeah.
remains for them, and we're moving it with each AP run.
That's a requirement of DES that you do that.
Okay. I need to work more in public. Thank you.
And as I said, for right now, where the funds are will stay until we make the change. If we do so with the investment policy, and then also at that time, decide to move the funds, as Kathy and I determine. One other thing to note, it's not budget related, but the first report for just where we are against budget, the last page. The St. Cobain settlement proceeds is reflecting almost $570,000. There's another over $500,000, be page 3, account 40995, below the blue line on the first set of reports. It's not budget related, but there are transactions, and I am gonna post them back to the dates that they belong. We had to do a reconciliation with how it had been requesting the funds from them along with a grant and had to do some adjustments. So those weren't all posted by the time we ran these reports, so there'll be another 500,000 we'll see through November 2019 when we get the December reports.
But they're gonna be in the P&L? Shouldn't they be? No.
No, this is, when we're drawing the funds, that's when, right now, when we're recognizing the proceeds, when we draw from the escrow, is how the auditors are having us record. So, once we know that we're gonna be drawing the funds, we send in the submission, and when we record that receivable, that's when we're putting the settlement proceeds onto the P&L here. But it's a below the line and it's not budget related.
Yeah, so the 381,000 here, we haven't drawn them yet from the funds, right? Because we haven't spent nearly that money, that kind of money to date.
St. Cobain, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay,
Actually, right now with, through 2019, it's 570,000.
okay.
And I have another, 500 that I'm recording. Right now, 300 and some, it's just been submitted. But that should be coming, usually they turn it around fairly quickly.
Okay.
And we will be adding another account for the funding for 2, 3, and 7, and 8. Even though that hasn't come through yet, I'm probably gonna move the monies from the operating to have in there, just to segregate everything, because we're gonna have a lot of different reporting we're gonna have to do, and it'll make it much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yep. Does anyone have any
Any
questions
other questions, anybody?
on the reports or anything in general?
So all those contributions from St. Cobain and so on, they're not gonna be parked on our balance sheet or anything like that. We're gonna receive them as we expend them.
Yes, we're
Right.
receiving, yes, we have actually, this, we just recently received over 500 from
Right.
them. And we just put in another submission for 380? I think was the one we just put in, over $300,000. We just submitted,
Okay, okay.
yep.
All right, good enough. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
All
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we got capital projects with Underwood Engineers. We got Turkey Hill Booster Station, wells 4 and 5, 7 and 8, 2 and 3.
There are 4 capital projects. That's what it is, right?
Take them in that order, I guess.
I'll take them in that order.
Booster Station first, then?
Not much to say there. I think you probably know where mostly it is now, but the project has been awarded to Penta, which means they've got formally the notice of award. There is a contract signing, I think, being targeted, which first or second week of January. And then they'll go through the shop drawing process and begin scheduling the work, which probably at this point isn't, there's no formal firm schedule. They'll know that in early January, but it sounds like it really won't get started on the ground until April. But they are scheduled to be substantially complete by the end of the summer or fall, September-ish.
Okay.
So that one's tracking. It's moving.
So this letter from DES, I don't know if you're familiar with that. This is just the contract award approval.
I think that's just saying we authorize or we concur with your award.
Let's see,
Yeah, this is standard. Yeah. Yeah, so that's just saying you concur with the recommendations to award the contract, and these are just some of the provisions to federal, state requirements
So-
because of the funding.
Yeah, so some of those provisions are listed here, like number 1, Davis-Bacon prevailing wage, and
Yeah.
American Iron and Steel, and all that
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And so this is the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund, right? Which I thought was less administration than the SRF.
Yes, but if you remember, when they were trying to figure out all the rules for the program, the first round of funding went out with a low interest rate, and as a condition, they tagged you with the same federal provisions as the SRF.
Oh,
Everybody
really?
said, come on. So they changed the interest rate, and now all the trust fund projects are going out without any federal or state provisions. So the money we got for 7, 8, 2, and 3 don't
Yeah.
have the federal ties to the trust fund
All right,
money.
good.
But this,
4 and 5 doesn't either.
and 4 and 5 doesn't
Yeah.
either, but this one did because it was first round.
Yeah, because I know we specifically looked at strategy about using
Yeah.
SRF for wells 2 and 3.
Right. And that'll be,
using all of the groundwater trust fund on 7 and 8, so
Right.
we don't have to rope in the
yeah,
extra.
exactly.
All right. 'Cause
But
this
that's
was
why.
conflicting with my understanding, but now I understand why.
They changed the rules a couple times along
Okay.
the way, so. But that's why that one got tagged with it.
All right, good. Wells 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Any questions, anybody on booster station? Okay,
And you guys all know that's Penta, the same contractor, so,
yes, right.
as 4 and 5. I'll just have Peter give a brief update on 4, 5.
Sure.
So, contractor's still moving along, site contractor is doing his work. He moved most of the on-site fill, or the slope that we were cutting, and then now they're going into the adjacent pit to grab a little bit more fill that we need around the building. So they're
I'm
continuing
just gonna
that.
pass these around, these are a couple of recent pictures, just to give you a little sense if you haven't seen them too, while he's talking.
They're starting to do the sewer work today. So they're starting to do that. They're laying it in front of the building first, so they can backfill around the building with that fill that they're bringing in from the pit area. Tomorrow morning they'll be pouring the last slab in the filter room. So they have right now the thickened pad, a 2-foot thick pad for the vessels. And now they're pouring the 6-inch pad around there. So they're pouring that tomorrow. They have a nice, you can see in there, there's a tented area, and I believe that's more of the chemical areas, mechanical, electrical. That side of the building was tented prior. And then they did the same thing on the vessel side.
Is that to keep the heat in for the floor slab?
One, to keep frost out of the ground, keep your steel warmer, before you're pouring it, and then once you pour it, then you can finish it, and then it's not gonna be freezing, as it's curing and stuff. And so they'll keep those tents on for probably about 14 days or so, yeah. So actually, they're doing a nice job in the sense of, with the winter conditions and that type of thing, and
Good.
yeah, John, the superintendent, is very conscientious on that, so.
You still meeting, what, the third?
Second
Second Thursday?
Yeah, so we had a project meeting last Thursday.
I know you went to a few of those meetings, right, Joe?
Yeah, I've been to a couple.
Yeah, he was at the last one too, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thanks for doing that.
They do have the meeting minutes in there too, Peter.
Yeah.
So in case
yeah,
you wanted
okay,
to-
those are the meeting minutes probably from the November one then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just had the December one, yeah.
So I wanted to follow up, I don't know if there was any follow-up from the, we asked you to ask Penta about if they could have Barry Miller work for,
For you guys, and
Yeah.
they said that they would have no problem with that,
oh, really?
yeah.
Nice, okay.
Yeah. So we just have to define, because he is doing some work, we've gotta make sure there's not overlap of
Yeah.
rework and responsibility and stuff like that, so we'll be putting that together, yeah.
Okay.
So they were amenable to that.
I have a quick question on the slab. So, in my experience, I see conduit here that's run, right? Electrical
Yes,
conduit
yeah,
that's run through
right,
the slab.
yeah.
In my experience, that's always a little bit of a challenge to make sure it's right. Who's checking that prior to pouring?
Well, it's
So-
the contractor's
yeah.
responsibility, period,
Yeah,
but
right.
we do check it for you with Joel.
You
Yeah.
are, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because contractors are nice and dandy, but they still screw up and
Oh, yeah.
we find
Right.
out at the time when we need the conduit and
Yeah.
it's still gonna take.
I just don't
Sure.
want the responsibility to fall back on
No,
us or you that it was incorrect,
Right.
but we do have those checks out there
Right,
Yeah.
to
okay.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah, again, it's fine to have the contractor responsible for it, but it still might affect the project if it's
Yeah.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just good practice to
yeah.
check that.
And did you get, is that the picture in there, like, just a ton of the
Steel and-
conduits?
Yeah, well, I see some here, it looks like
Oh,
shown up here.
okay, so you didn't get the one that had, there was, yeah, so there was another one where there, like, in the electrical room, there was just a ton of them out there. And so it'd be very difficult to compact around that, and then the contractor ended up just, putting in some, flowable fill in there, just to make sure that it was, we didn't have any, loose areas under there where anything could settle or that type of thing, so they did that on their own, and so that was nice. yeah.
So you mentioned that the sewer is being installed. There was, I saw some correspondence
Okay,
from you
so the
between
sewer
town
permit
and
is
the-
now, is, we have that now.
Okay, that's
For
what I was
the,
gonna ask.
for the sewer connection, just for our wastewater, the 60, we're estimating 60 gallons per day. So that has been approved by the town, has been approved by the state, so we're all
Okay,
set.
so they did, because there was some question about slope and the elevation.
Yeah, we took care of all that, then we had to, yeah, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all done. And
Any other,
DES had a few questions too on a few things, so we took care of that.
Any other questions on wells 4 and 5?
And if you're keeping track, you remember the contract value is 4.08 with change orders. They've earned to date about 850,000. So it's about 21% payment, and the retainage I heard you talk about is being held at just under 100,000.
Why was I thinking 5.1 was?
The project with engineering contingencies and soft cost is 5.
Okay.
Their contract is just over 4.
So there was something I was thinking about, because when wells 4 and 5 come online, it's gonna be nice PFAS-free water. What's the possibility of putting like a fill station or something for residents if they wanna get water? Clean water? Is it, I don't know how we would,
What do you build for that?
I don't know if we
Yeah, there's no,
bother.
there are no provisions on the building right now, like for an
Yeah.
outside, there's an outside faucet, but those are typically the industrial ones that you gotta have sort of a little key to open.
I don't
up.
think too many people would bother driving over with their containers and
Right.
filling up water and all
Right, yeah.
that, but
It'd be a nice thing if you could offer it. We'll just look into
It
it.
would,
It's not
just
a
an
hard
idea.
ad, it'd be,
Yeah.
I don't think it's such a volume of water that
Right.
we need to worry about billing. I don't think. I mean, unless there were like cars driving in and out all day long, but
yeah.
I don't know,
You can
just
still
throwing
put a
that
meter
idea
on it,
out
it's
there.
not expensive to put a meter on it.
right,
Then you can decide if it's
That at least-
becoming expensive.
right.
Yeah.
At least we can account for it,
Right.
in our water loss, so that we're not get hit
Yeah.
for water loss. But just something. And I don't know. I'm not a fan of having people traipsing through the pump station
Right.
building either, because there's
No.
liability issues with that. But
Yes, I don't know if we would have a.
I don't know. I just thought I'd put it out there and
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, let's think it through.
So I don't think, right now, we do not have we would have to put a separate meter if you wanted to have a dedicated line to track that water. And if it's gonna be for sort of the short term, until, 7 and 8 comes on, I don't know if it's,
Yeah.
is it worth it or not, or.
Excuse me.
It
But
just
if
might
you
be
do
something
wanna
I
do
know
it, then
some
we
of
would
our-
have to, we had to just
Yeah.
do a quick little change order, so.
Is there any concerns with like sanitary
Yeah.
requirements if we just provide something like that? I mean, anybody could walk up there and contaminate the spigot.
Well,
Right.
and as you point out, just the access, you're trying to control access out there to some degree too, so there are things to think about before we just say this is a good idea.
Yeah.
But let's explore it.
Yeah.
Let's explore it.
Just it would be just a positive gesture to
Yeah.
customers, instead of having to run off and.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I can just imagine.
I do too.
Just
It's
from the
just
RV
right now.
world, right? Camping in an RV world, you know that there's always yuck factor with public water supply, or
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it'd be clean on our end, but what it does in the containers, whatever, whatever container they put it in, I don't know. But-
Well, you can put backflow preventions in and so forth, but
Right.
it's still, you'd be responsible for whatever
Yeah.
somebody left there
Right.
before the second person comes, but, yeah, let's explore it. We got a little bit of time before you'd have to have a decision on that.
Okay. Any other questions, wells 4 and 5? You guys all good
Yeah,
with 4
no,
and
that
5?
was it, just a
Yeah.
brief update.
All right, so let's move on to wells
Oh, I did
7 and
one
8.
more thing on
Oh,
that,
okay.
is, so the vessel shop drawings, that's been approved now. So it took a little longer than expected because we were going, when you're talking to some, the vendors about, during the design phase, they're giving you certain information, then all of a sudden, once we get the shop drawn, all of a sudden we're getting some more of this information. So then we had to kind of reconcile and make sure we were getting what we wanted. So there's some going back and forth. So that took about 3 weeks longer, but they said that is not gonna affect the end date. So he was planning on, putting some temporary trusses up, but as the, mason got a little bit delayed, it sounds like everything's gonna line up. That the vessels are, he didn't have a firm date, cause they were saying 14 to 16 weeks, so if you went to 14, it would be the end of February, 16 weeks would be the middle of March. So that's about when the vessels are gonna be coming there. They plan on plopping them in, and then the trusses are gonna be right there, and they'll plop the trusses right on the roof and keep going, so it's not gonna affect so it sounds like that was the big item. So it sounds like that we're on schedule for that one to be online.
Is that 2 feet of snow slowed anything down?
No.
Too bad, or?
No, because they had blankets over so every night they put blankets over the building area, so they could keep that warm, and then they just shoveled it off and
Wow.
peeled it up and just continued working, so, yeah.
As far as the vessels and the medium, are we clear what we're gonna go with? For some reason, I don't remember.
The vessels we are, and the media, we are also.
Yeah,
I forget the,
the specific kind.
Something 400.
F400, I think, wasn't it?
so.
AR 400 or F400.
I didn't.
Yeah, because I don't think we talked about it in any of the meetings. That must have been in any of your correspondence.
We
with you.
definitely talked about it in the work session that we had.
Mm.
Um,
Wasn't there some discussion about the arsenic
Oh, yeah.
and so on? So
Yeah,
what
this
is
was
that?
the lowest arsenic one.
This is.
Yeah,
Yes.
with the best, or the
Treatment.
better PFAS removal, so it worked out.
And cost-wise?
And it's regenerable one too.
It is.
Yes. Okay. So anytime you go with the acid rinsed one, that's then it increases cost. But if you don't go with the acid rinse, then you're going to get a lot of the higher arsenic. So that acid rinse will.
When you say regenerable,
That's where you take it back to the the manufacturer. They incinerate it to destroy the PFAS, and then they bring back that
the carbon.
carbon. Then they have to put a little bit of replacement in there because you'll lose a little bit.
Right.
So then they'll put some replacement in there and bring back your carbon. So then you do, then you get rid of the legacy issue if you're landfilling or that type of thing. So that was another key, is to being,
Yeah, so we don't
You know.
have a disposable product in
Right.
and landfill that we have to worry about, right?
And I think that's important information, for the public, because I
Right.
think there was an open question from one of the public meetings,
yeah.
the disposal process. Do we know if, like, this incineration, is that a controlled process?
And they give you a certificate of
They do?
destruction, yes.
They do?
Yeah,
Okay.
Now, how long is that process? Because when we evacuate a tank and bring it over to get reconstituted and bring it back.
yeah, they say that they can be storing, some of your resin, and I'm not,
That's what I'm wondering. Do we
I'm
need
not
to have
resin,
that
but GAC, but.
put in a warehouse and then buy a whole new brand
Yeah,
new, and always have one in the storage or something? Or?
and we gotta follow up on that, because they were talking about, we can store, your media when you want it. I'm like going, okay, how much area do you have to store? It's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
how many
Merrimack
clients?
has a little bit, but then the next town and the next town and the next town.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta have a lot of storage if you're gonna start be doing that. So they might be saying that, but I think in the future they're gonna probably say, hey, we don't have that. So
Well, or it's just pooled. It might just be
it
pooled
could be
material.
pooled, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not positive about that. I could double check on that.
Which I think we'd
Just-
want to make sure does it matter after we use it once? There's no more arsenic issues after the first, like the reconstituted material doesn't have arsenic issues.
I don't believe so. Yeah, you doing
I
that?
think Lynette
I
said
don't
no.
don't believe that.
Did
either.
she say
I think
no?
I think it was only the virgin.
Virgin, I believe that's
She's
what I
the
thought it was
authority
too.
in
Yeah.
It's the Calgon filter sorb F400 AR, I believe, or the 400 AR. I think the AR
Yeah,
is
it
what
was
stands
acid
for
rinse.
the
Acid rinse, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously it's cost implications. If we evacuate a tank and then have it reconstituted, then we only have technically one vessel online at that point, right? And that
Yeah.
would be
Right.
good if we didn't have to shut the plant down during that time.
Right.
If we could operate with that just one vessel, which would be the new lead vessel at that point.
Right.
And then by the time the material was reconstituted and redeposited, then it would be the lag
Lag
tank.
vessel, yeah. Right.
And I would assume that we have some kind of procedures we're gonna write up, right? As far as like media replacement and record keeping and so on, so.
Yeah, we
That
will,
certificate of destruction is something we gotta make sure we hold that near and dear, because I don't wanna find out 10 years later that we didn't keep the records for that and somebody's coming back and
Yeah.
Yeah.
suing us for contaminating something else.
Yeah.
and part of our scope of work is we do write, we
We did talk about
Yeah,
that. We're
which
writing
we-
that up.
So the protocols, the procedures, and the standards will be written up in there, and you'll get a chance to review that, and all the stuff can get put in there.
Yeah.
Do we audit stuff like that? Do we go back and audit record keeping from 5 years ago?
For what? I mean, we have files on everything that we build and.
Right, but do we audit it? Like, do we go, because having files and actually maintaining them are two different things, right? So, do we go back and audit records of the past? Does the ES come in and audit us, or?
They ask, but there's certain things, like if they put together a proposal, if there's deliverables and that type of thing, all that has to be sorted out before the last payment, make sure that everything was, sent to them that was promised and that type of thing. That's for like the grants and the loans.
Right, that's for the construction project. What I'm saying is, again, the certificate of destruction, I believe, will be something we may or may not need down the road, because this
That will be
contam-
maintained.
right.
That's the one.
And again, we can have a procedure in place that tells us that we need to do that, but that doesn't guarantee that we're actually doing that, right? And that's where audits come into play. The audits are telling you whether or not you did it in the past. Not you, we did it in the past, and I mean, that's the whole point of having audits, to ensure that what we say is actually what we say we do is actually what we do, right?
That might be
So-
something we need to develop. I don't think we have that in place now, cause
That's
we're
what I'm
not,
asking.
we're not.
You probably have like sort of
Tracking.
internal audits, you're kind of just making sure every people are just double checking, like you and Ron are working together to,
Yeah, I
make
guess
sure
I'm not,
things are done.
if you gave me an example, I might be able to help you out better, but I can't come up with one off the top of my head, so.
Even, test documentation, test results or something, to make sure they're actually being filed, that they're actually available, 2 years later, 5 years later. And again, we're entering a new dilemma here, where we now possibly have to prove that we're not causing contamination somewhere else, right? So, that may not have been an issue in the past, but could be an issue in the future. So I just wanna make sure that when we have a procedure in place, we actually audit it, that we actually executing that procedure. Just having a procedure in place doesn't buy squat, right? So,
Yeah. And if you actually, I think if you walk into Ron's office when he's around, if you look up above the SCADA machines or right to the left of it, I think the O&M manuals for 7 and 8 are there, and they're
Mhm.
probably 5 volumes of stuff.
right, I've seen them, yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
I-
we don't know
I-
if they're being read, we're
yeah,
not being
I
sure,
know.
we don't know if they're being followed, so
Yeah,
that's why I'm
but
bringing.
that, yep. I
And
get
that's
it.
not on you, that's on us.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's a good question.
Okay. Move on to, 7 and 8.
7 and 8, and I'm gonna lump 7 and 8, 2 to 3 kind of together. I'm gonna start here just sort of giving a kind of an overview of where we're at, what we've been doing recently, and where the next 30 to 40 days I think are gonna play out. 7 and 8, the drawings have been submitted to the district at 60% design review. So there's already a review going on, and the district is due to get some comments back to us by, actually, Christmas Eve, so,
Oh, yeah, that's-
we were said Christmas Day, but most everybody said they'd give them to us a day early, so, the 24th is when we're getting those back from the district. It's a critical milestone, cause it's kind of one of the last chances we really have to make, some significant changes. A couple things I will point out about that in the original report that was issued back last year, which was the basis of the petition warrant articles, the building is 64% bigger than it was when we envisioned it back then. A lot of that has to do with the lag vessels and the change, we needed to make them bigger. And there's 50% more carbon in the 60% design than there was estimated back. So those are some of the things that I noticed when I went back and looked.
Is that with or without the lead and lag vessels?
It's with lead lag. So back in 2018, we just had lead, no lag. This has a lead lag.
So if we take the lag out, how much did the carbon increase?
It would be about
Half
the
of that?
same. It'd be about the same as what we estimated
Well,
before.
okay,
Yeah, because frankly, it's 50% more carbon, so that would make sense.
Right,
leave
right.
lag, right?
And it's percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the building's a little bit bigger probably than 50% because the vessels for the carbon were were configured differently, and then there's space for resin. But it's, you know, I think in the round numbers, it's 64%.
We had left some additional empty floor space,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah, and that probably is whack too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out because
Yeah.
that's, you know, those are,
So-
I'm gonna be talking about dollars and cents, and that's, you know, some of the drivers for those.
So in terms of, we did leave floor space, the roof is, you know, the truss system is gonna be designed such that it can be removed. But we also put a knockout wall, I think it was 14 by 16 foot knockout wall. So in case you have some other kind of treatment that's smaller that might not need the roof to come off, you can actually rip the wall, you know, open that up and come through that way. So we're kind of giving you two different ways to get stuff into the building depending on the size of what you might need in the future. So I imagine in the next 5 years, it's gonna be a lot of, you know, different research and some new products coming out and that type of thing, so.
Hopefully.
So we have both of those, you know, options in there for you.
We'll show you costs in a minute, but 7 and 8, I think, is tracking pretty close to what we thought. It's because of the lag, it's more, which we knew, and it's about as much more as we kind of thought it might be. We'll show you those numbers in a minute. There's not a lot you can do with 7 and 8. You can either just make it longer or shorter, the addition, because there's one direction we're going, and it's just going to be bigger or smaller depending on what we decide we wanted to put in there. So it's pretty straight. That one's fairly straightforward. That's why it was a little easier to estimate the costs. But it's at 60% design, so again, that's probably the last milestone where we can, before we really start going into structural, mechanical, electrical, where things are starting to get finalized. But there is time to change some things. Wells 2 and 3, we're actually only at 30% design. So we're even earlier in the concepts. So it's a lot easier now to make changes there too. So I want to make that point because we're going to talk about some of the things that are driving costs, but you know, we're early on. It's easy to make changes. So, and it's really the first milestone after the concept design that was in 2018. So it's the first significant milestone where we actually had a deliverable with some meat to the design. The building in 2 or 3 is about 42% bigger than what was envisioned in 2018, and the carbon. If I did my math right, Lynette's usually the one who would answer this properly, but I'm getting about 2/3 bigger, 66, 67%, and it might again be because of the configuration.
There was also a little bit of the upgrade capacity.
Did the design flow
That's right.
change?
Yeah, design
That's right.
flow came, that's
Yeah.
what it was,
Yeah.
yeah. The capacity of the plant went up from 1,900 gallons a minute that we thought, because we were looking at 800 gallons a minute for well 3 and 1,100 for well 2, and that's what you're currently pumping at, or about that.
Right.
And then, but then, you know, afterwards, we found out that, you know, you wanted to looking at a treatment plant to put a capacity to the wells, which wells 3 is 1,000 instead of 800, and well 2 is 1,500 instead of 1,100.
So it went from 1,900 to
2,500, yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's why.
That's what it would do, yeah,
Yeah. Which brings me to the point where a lot of the design decisions that have been made along the way, whether it was something we came up with, whether something district asked for, whether we worked together and came up with it, some of them had cost implications. That's one of them. So we're at the point now that we've got to talk and get some guidance and some policy or some direction from the board. It's not too late. We're right on track to where we should be. We'll probably show you some numbers that are going to look a little bit frightening in terms of where we think things are falling out. We'll talk about how we can manage them. What I want to tell you, though, is because this is not an opinion of cost. You're going to see some numbers. We have not completely done one, or we're not comfortable saying this is where we think the project's going to be yet. We're still kind of developing those things, but what we can give you is what we think it's going to be in this range, or it's going to be around this. This decision, we think, added this much cost. If we take that out, we can reduce this much cost. You're going to see those kinds of things, but I don't want you to take a look at these numbers and say that's the opinion of cost, because I think we still have some work to do. But it is over, based on where we're estimated, and in some on 2 or 3 significantly. So there's reasons. We can get into those if you want, but I think it's most important we just look at them and just have some discussion on them. I think before Peter hands this out, I think there's things that can be manageable. We had a great work session on Friday. Don was there, Ron was there, your operators and staff were there. We started looking at these things. We started coming up with ideas and looking at cost reductions. So I think we are gonna do more of that with those guys, and I'll jump ahead a little bit. We sort of laid out a 30 to 45 day window where we wanna do some internal team work with district and us to sort of optimize the design and then see where we can reduce costs and make decisions, and then talk to you guys about whether or not we want to have either even more value engineering done on the project, externally even, if it's not us, because, you know, we can do a lot internally, but it might be nice to get a, you know, for this size project, it might be worth getting that outside view, or getting a professional cost estimator involved for that low money. You know, we might, once we sort of feel like we have the right design, there are services out there, we do it, right, but, you know, we just base it on previous experience, but you can pay for a service that would lock it in a little bit better than we might. So that's an option. And then there are some tools that I sort of have in my toolbox as we look at capital cost increases, where we can look at things that are either we can do to make things rate neutral or other things. So I think we can get into those, but I'm already thinking about those things as we make decisions maybe on value-added items that we want. But I'll have Peter give you this, and then we'll walk through what we're seeing so we can have some discussion on it. This is about as simple as we could present it. There's obviously a lot more worksheets that we have in the background, but if you look at this sheet, there's 3 columns and there's a couple rows here. The middle column is well 7 and 8. I just want to walk you through that just to get familiar with the sheet, and then we'll look at wells 2 and 3. The first row, the petition warrant article, which was based on the 2018 report, was $3.6 million. We're estimating, and again, we're still kind of in the range of costs right now, but we're estimated between $1 and $1.5 million to put the lag on that facility. There's a couple value-added items. We just put a question mark there, so there may be opportunities to even reduce costs there. Or, for example, right now we have a lot of empty space for the future resin vessels. Good idea, smart planning, but there's a cost to it. So we may just want to talk about those things. One of the things we're paying attention to is just construction cost increases. When we put this report together in 2018, we put costs together based on 2018 dollars. It's now 2019, it's going to be 2020 when we build it. And so are we seeing inflation higher than maybe what we had thought or even estimated? In fact, I don't think the report had inflation built into it. So anyway, well, 7 and 8, we're still seeing around 4.5, 4.1 to 5.1.
Somebody does seem to think that I tried to bring that up back then, that we should
Did you?
put inflation in.
You might have. I
But
did that.
we would have to.
Yeah, I went back and looked at the report. The report clearly says 2018 dollars, and maybe there was a discussion. I don't recall it, but it wasn't in. But regardless, 7 and 8 is kind of tracking where we thought it would be. It still seems to fit within the contingency and the added costs. Does it mean, though, that there aren't opportunities for some reductions there? There are a few things in there that are maybe, if you term them niceties versus necessities, there's some things in there we might be able to find. So that's how this worksheet talks about, works. On the bottom, we started list of potential saving items, value added. One of the things that's listed here is well cleaning. We only pointed out, not because it's not a good idea, but it was not in the original report. So it's just those things that, you know, it wasn't in the report because it wasn't, we typically view those as a maintenance item. We added it in 4 and 5 because it made sense to do them while we're there. We're talking about adding them in these things, but it wasn't originally in the estimate.
So what do we have for vessels in that one again? 7 and 8, we have.
2 15-foot diameter.
And that's lead lag carbon, and then
Yeah.
we have additional floor space for 2 resin vessels.
Exactly, yeah.
That's just gonna be empty space initially.
Right, exactly, yeah. We went with 15-foot vessels instead of their traditional, you know, like 10s and 12s are you know, more they're common. But then if we went with that, we would have to have 4 vessels. So we said, okay, so we can go with where, you know, they do make a 15, it costs a little bit more, but we're thinking that, you know, that is better than going with 4
Another
vessels,
vessel.
because that would have added on to the building even more. So by going with 2 15-footers, we're kind of, I think we're saving on building footprint.
So,
Yeah,
2 vessels in series,
Yeah.
yeah,
and that's for 2,500 gallons a minute.
correct.
Okay. So really, I mean, a cost-saving measure, if we wanted to, would be to take away the future floor space and not build it out right now.
That would be the main cost savings right
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Well, and really, I mean, with the MCLs right now being
In
under,
question or,
being
yeah.
under injunction, right? I wouldn't be opposed.
2,000 gallons, man, I was just checking.
Okay.
It's 2,000 gallons.
The lag vessels are currently not legally required, right? So, I mean, I would hate to build the building without the room and the piping for it. But at least the vessel and the media could be something we could postpone at this time.
Yeah.
We
Right.
would have reason to do so.
Now, did you hear Mass just came out with some proposed limits? Yeah, okay.
Well, it's popping up all over the place, right?
Yeah, right, yeah,
It's
so-
probably a matter of time, but
They've been sued yet?
at this time.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, at this time, the petition warrant articles basically told us to put these vessels in place without lag filter, right?
Yes,
Well, they didn't-
that's
they
what the
didn't call it
cost.
out.
It didn't
It didn't-
specify,
it
but it
didn't
based it on
specify.
our report, which
Correct.
was no lag.
Right, because at that time it was not legally required. Right now, it's no longer legally required, or at least it's a limbo, right?
right.
Right.
So, from my perspective, that would be the first thing we should take out. Not that I'm a fan of it, but at least we're going back to the scope of the petition warrant articles.
Yeah.
The only thing is, we would have to understand what impact does it have to still have the provisions to have a lag filter, right?
Right.
We can't make that a one-way street, right?
Right. No, I think this is kind of the feedback we're looking
Yeah.
for from you guys. No decisions today. I'm not even looking for decisions today. We're just looking for what
Right.
would we want to consider. One of the things we had at the work session was, here's the 6 or 8 items Underwood thought of, and then we asked your guys, can you just what haven't you heard that? And they listed 6 or 8 more. Some of them may work, some of them are non-starters, but you got to start somewhere. So if there's an interest in saying what are the pros and cons, what are the goods and bads about that decision, we'll weigh the risk against the savings and make a decision later.
Right.
And I started earlier by saying I had proposed when we met Friday that we have a 30 to 45 day scope optimization, design optimization internally to see what we come up with.
And to expand on that a little bit, we could always bid the project with a lead vessel, and then you have a lag as an alternate or a second bid item. So you have bid item number 1 is everything with the lead. Bid item number 2 is a lag vessel, and then so because yes, they're going. The state kind of pulled back a little bit, but so this one's, we're going to be bidding this, but we don't know what's going to happen. So I guess it gives you the option, at least one, and you can see what the dollars are compared to any kind of estimate. Then you can make a decision at
Yeah.
that point too.
It might just mean, it may be a tricky bid because the building had to be bigger too, and there's,
No, not with just the lead,
Not with lead lag.
not with lead lag for
future
future
things,
resident
yeah.
would be bigger, but we would have to still add on to it.
okay, so you're saying keep the
Right.
building the same?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, not the same, but so we're expanding it. I forget what it is now. It's say 40 feet, but we only need 25 for the lead lag. We're putting that extra 15 on for potential resident or some other kind of treatment. But we can still put that 25 on, but only put 1 tank in
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And then we can come back in and put on a
Right.
tank. The building will be there. Except,
So-
but if you do it later, you'll have to take the roof off and to
Yeah.
put it back in.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could shrink the building and put 1 tank in, so there's 2 things.
Yes,
we can
right,
do
yeah.
there, Really.
Yeah.
The only thing with that, and we're gonna have to make a choice about how we're gonna handle what allowable level of PFAS, if we want any. Because when you have 1 tank and it breaks through, it's broken through. Now it's in the drinking water. You don't have a lag tank to catch.
And that plant's offline now, right? So once you
If
get
it's
that
for
breakthrough.
compliance,
But if you have just a lead, yes, it's for
Cause
compliance,
the
yes,
warrant
right, yeah.
article says reduce
Right,
Yeah,
PFAS,
so if
doesn't
you're- if
say
you're-
remove.
right.
Yeah,
I don't like it,
yeah,
Me
what we're
neither,
talking
but
about,
we
but
have to be able to pay for it.
we have to be able to pay for it.
right, yeah.
So I'm just pointing that out so people understand
But if you
that
do have breakthrough that's past a limit, that if
that's a
DES
different
does
situation.
have a limit,
If we have breakthrough, we have a lag, if we
Yeah.
have MCL violations, we have to have a lag tank.
but
So
right now, 7 and 8 with the,
there's no violation.
there's no
on
violation of that
anything.
right now.
2, 3, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
If it's 70, there's no violation, even
Right.
if it's 38, it's really.
Do we know the turnaround, if we were to discover breakthrough today, how fast can we have the media replaced?
That's a
I
good
can check
question.
on, cause I was
Don't
gonna,
know
I was
that.
gonna check on how long it's gonna take to, when you're planning it, so all of a sudden if you get surprised and go, oh, we got breakthrough,
Right.
now I don't know, then you would have to say, okay, you gotta schedule, a time for them to come here and all that
Right.
kinda stuff, so then I could check both of those things,
Now, we do have vertical sample
Yes.
taps too, so we
Yeah,
can
you have a
kinda track
25, 50, 75, and then if you have a lead lag, then you're sampling in between the two vessels,
Yeah.
so.
So we could sample like at the 75% mark, and once we see it there,
Well,
Prepare
when we went up to, KKW, up in
yeah,
Maine.
I didn't go to that.
They started sampling at 25, and then, as they're starting to see something, then they start also sampling at 50, and when they start, then they jump to.
Okay.
So they don't always, test at 75, they're trying to
Track it.
track it through the, and then when they get into 75, then all of a sudden they're starting to sample at the midpoint between the two vessels and that type of thing. So then they're sort of, then they, obviously, that's what you guys want to be doing too, and starting to track it, because every system's going to be a little different between the contamination that you have and concentrations and all that kind of stuff. So.
All right, I think that's pretty good. 7 and 8, any other questions on that, or?
There may be a few minor things, here and there, but those would certainly be the big ones.
Did you wanna mention about the meeting that we're having for the funding?
Yeah, that's January 9th, 7th, something like that.
I think it's the 9th.
9th, where the state's just coming in to make sure we're tracking and pulling out of the grants from the trust funds and loans the way they want it. So that's just a coordination meeting. I think that was primarily the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as setting up the disbursements and all
Yeah.
that stuff, it would just be nice to be on the same page.
Did you get the invite on that, Peter? too?
No, when is that?
The 9th. I told Mike to invite you too.
Okay, yeah.
Where's that, up in Concord?
Yeah, they've asked us to go up there. I don't, you're welcome, but I think it's more paperwork,
Yeah.
administrative. I need you on this stuff.
I know.
I'm sorry I couldn't make it on Friday. We had an
Yeah.
emergency at work. I had planned to be there, but
Well, we have copies of all the boards if you want them
Yeah, I took pictures. Oh, you got them too?
printed out, yeah,
Yeah.
the notes. With 2 and 3, there's a little bit of time. I think the injunction may play out in time, hopefully, or at least 2 or 3 has such a schedule that the injunction may play out before we have to make final decisions on 2 and 3. So that'll be a little bit interesting. 7 and 8, it's a little bit more critical to stay track on bidding for spring. The other thing I do want to mention on 7 and 8, though, if we don't find dollars to reduce it to 3.6, right, and we have a lag, we choose to say we keep the lag or whatever, we have to figure out if we think it's gonna come in above 3.6, how we're gonna handle that.
if I look at the number, we're right at the 316 if we skip the lag,
We think so, yeah,
right? So
yeah, we think so. So if we take that out, pull the buildings back, we think so, yeah, on that one. So
We got 110,000 on just stabilized soil, that ram aggregate pier that we had to put in there, because of the liquefaction of the soils out there. So right there, we're saving. That's just in soil prep.
If we don't have to expand the building as much.
Yeah.
So, but one more time, so the lag vessel, the 1 to 1.5 million for the lag vessel, that includes also
That's just it.
the building portion as well, right?
yes, yeah.
So.
And
if
probably
we
the
want,
extra
Oh, it
space
does.
for the resin too, yeah, I think so, yeah,
and the resin too.
yeah.
So if we scaled back the resin, but we would still we would still want to build the building so we can put a lag vessel in.
Yeah.
And the piping. Do you have a ballpark where we end up with that?
Not really. I mean, this just gets you in the idea. I think your point's right. If you guys say, let's take a look at no lag, leave space for the lag, but no space for the future resident, we'll run it.
I think that's the scenario we should be running,
And
because
this probably is close to it, but we'll check.
we probably should be anticipating the lag vessel,
Yeah.
right? And we shouldn't, like I said, cause a one-way street for that,
Right.
not being able to put that in. But the resin seems to be something that's a luxury right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
so.
Yeah, that's the kind of guidance, and then we can run some numbers. Okay,
So that'd be an option to put the
Does-
vessel in and not the resin in the lag vessel? Put the lag vessel in but not the resin? Or no?
Say that again, slower?
We put the lag vessel in place, but don't fill it with media.
or leave it in space for future carbon or future resin. I mean, it's space, it's space.
I mean, I don't know what the cost of just the media would be to fill it, if that's a substantial thing or not, but.
So we want all scenarios.
Yeah, I know.
Just run them all.
And that's all right, no, that makes sense, cause that's where we're at. 2 and 3 is, it's a little trickier. 10.9 original warrant article, lag vessels, we think, add, depending on how you kinda chop it up, what decisions you make to, add them or to take them away, we think is in the range of 2 to 3 million for those. Value added items, I think it's fair to say that we're calling these niceties. I don't, some of them, there might be a couple in there that are necessities. But there's a potential, I think, if everybody's comfortable, to reduce those out of the project. But right now, on the drawings you see, they're in there. So it's 2 to 3.5. One of them, Peter just talked about, the PFAS treatment plant designed for 2,500 gallons a minute. That really added about 1.3 million, we think. And that's because of your permanent capacity has the potential, but it's not really where you're operating. And the original report was presented at 1,900. So that was a big one. Some decisions that were made on iron and manganese, and Dawn, if you're paying attention, there was a couple errors we had on Friday on the iron and manganese, so they've been corrected here, but the rest of them were about the same. Building size, there was just some added space for convenience put in and around the vessels. We're talking to your staff about how they can either work around that or we can do something different, but just adding some building size for convenience was about 280,000. The well cleaning, again, we mentioned, wasn't
I
in
think we
there.
can easily do that building size, 'cause we talked about, the reason we had a little bit bigger building is to, get like a scissor jack around, or a scissor lift, to get up, continue to get to the top of the vessels. Then we were thinking, well, maybe we just, because we're gonna have 6 vessels in there, maybe we just put a little catwalk up there. And we already have a landing coming from the upper level, we could just go right up there, and so then that would eliminate the need for, a bigger building, so you could crush it down a little bit. So I think that could, with a little extra cost for the catwalk, I think you can.
I find that surprising, so designing and building a catwalk is cheaper in the end than
Well, we're thinking
bumping
that.
out by 5 feet?
Yeah, so
We don't know yet. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of the
So
things we wanna look at.
Yeah.
The building is, deep. It's not just a slab on grade like
Right.
4 and 5 is either.
Mm.
But that would be offset by whatever the catwalk ad is. So yeah, point
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah.
The generator was, when we look back at the report, wasn't in there. Site work mentioned here because if you remember, there was 3 sites looked at in the engineering report, and no, we didn't land on one. We just said we knew we had to have raw water main to it, whether it shifted like this. But we are finding, I think, Pete's number is that the site work associated with well number 3, which is the preferred site, did have a little bit of a cost to it. The maintenance facility.
More so than any other.
Yeah, we're not sure that you could actually do the combined one at 2. I think these guys
Yeah.
are concerned about that, but this is really versus the maintenance facility site.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think this, your second option would probably be the main, because I don't think you have the terrain over at well 2 would be tough to kind of get that to fit in there. You definitely had to bunker it into some of the hill and be creative how you're doing things. And over in 3, you could do the same thing, but you would have some more permitting issues because you're gonna be out back by the pond. You're gonna have, you know, your lower elevation there for infiltration and all that kind of stuff. So that would be a little bit more challenging, let you pump, you know, your infiltration more up on it, up behind well 3, up on a hill, you know, type of thing. So,
So,
I was gonna say, the maintenance area is already sort of mostly cleared and flat.
yes, yeah, that would be the,
that's the advantage. It's one of them. There's a little bit offset because there'd be more finished water main, but, you know, these are just kind of, we're trying to get
Right.
close to see if it's something, yes, that seems like it might be worth at least looking at a little closer to confirm.
It almost seems like we're gonna sort of need, like, the pieces of all of these costs to know if we do a certain option, those pieces all go away. I mean, I'll give you an example. Something I was thinking was the high cost here is the treatment of green sand for iron and manganese at well 3, and there's a line from well 3 that would come from the maintenance building area that would need to be installed. If we decided to abandon well 3, wells 4 and 5 are coming back online, and I know that's gonna give us some additional capacity to replace the abandonment of well 3. We have well 1 at the maintenance area. I don't know if that's even technically still an approved source or not. But when we're looking at what we're doing at wells 4 and 5, what is it, well 4 that we're replacing, basically replacing the well, right?
yeah,
Are we thinking that's like $160,000, $170,000 or something?
in that ballpark, yeah.
And that's not for the pump and everything, that's
Oh, yeah.
just for the
Yeah.
well. Is there an option that we rehabilitate well 1, basically put a new well in? And I'm not sure why it's offline, if it's just an old screen or if there's actually, if the formation's too silty or something, I'm not sure what the problem is. And I was gonna ask Ron, but he's not here, so, cause he certainly has the
Yeah.
memory on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember what the details. But this, my thought is if we move the treatment plant to the warehouse location, abandon well 3, if the water quality at well 1 is good, that we don't need iron and manganese treatment.
Yeah.
Now we're saving iron and manganese, we're saving a transmission line from well 3 all the way to the garage. Those are substantial savings, like millions,
Yeah,
multiple millions.
yeah.
But it's unknown what the status of a well 1 is over there. And it's not the preferred location for the treatment plant building because you have access issues on Continental making turns in and out of there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, that was my first thought, was that would be the better location for a treatment plant building. And the only reason I really relinquished that and went over to the well 3 site over here that we were looking at more recently is because it's got better traffic in and out. It's got a stoplight,
Yeah.
it's got everything already all set
Yeah.
up.
For a future office space.
And, yeah,
And the
You need a
trucks.
tractor trailer.
Yeah, but the office space is not,
that's, I wouldn't, yeah, at this point,
Now, Jill, are you sampling water from well 1? Do you know if you're
I
sampling?
don't think so, right? No.
Then if you're not sampling it, then probably
Yeah.
you have, that one's gone, well,
I know it's decommissioned, I don't know if they,
yeah. So,
Yeah.
I remember seeing some talk about it, they filled it with cement and.
Oh, they did
like,
go through all that?
Yeah, but I'd have to double check some.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the only one that's offline, and I remember that discussion.
so you would have to go through the full
So that would be
permitting
a more
process.
onerous permitting process.
Yeah, to pull that back up online. And I'm wondering with your maintenance building right there, you know, that's a potential contaminant
I
sources
was
and stuff
wondering
like
the
that,
same
yeah, so,
thing.
yeah.
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah,
We'll ask, I mean, Garrett or Ron what
Yeah.
the history is. Mike might remember the history better than I do too.
Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, when wells 4 and 5 come back online, I was looking at the numbers, and I think it's approved for, or the yield of it is probably about, is 2/3 of well 3.
what, well 1?
Well 4 and 5 is less than well 3, but not significantly less than well 3.
I think it was 870 max
Yeah.
day, right? And then
Yeah, but we had-
sustained like 700 or something. Or
I think,
something.
well, 650, I think.
650.
Yeah, I think 650, and you got 800 you're pulling out of
3.
3 right now, yeah.
So, like, we were able to live this summer without wells 4 and 5,
Yeah.
without having to buy water from
Yeah.
Nashua. But I don't know what happens in a drought year.
Yeah, but also,
You know, we have
Dave,
increased
Yeah,
capacity with all these residential
Yeah.
apartments being
yeah,
built.
demand, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
Dave was mentioning, you got a lot of new units hooking up, so you're gonna have, your demand's gonna be.
But how much
Yeah.
demand-
Not with
this-
irrigation
yeah.
though, no irrigation though.
Yeah, no, yeah.
No, except for the public areas and those, and what I heard from Ron, he's not super worried about it,
He's on, yeah,
because irrigation is what's killing it.
is it, yeah.
Because the only reason I look at well 3 is because there's a big price tag in our original CIP. It was like over $4 million just for
4.6.
for well 3's iron and manganese.
Yep, 4.6.
So, and again, this is if the water, if we did want to pursue well 1, the water would have to be iron and manganese free in order for this to make sense. So
Right.
I'm almost wondering, I don't know, should we try to look into answering those questions? And I don't know what would be involved, but can we just drill a small diameter monitoring well in the vicinity of well 1 and take samples and see what we have for iron and manganese?
Well,
See
that-
what we have for
Yeah.
formation of, if it's silty, if it's too silty to sustain. I don't remember why the well was abandoned. Was it just an old decrepit screen that collapsed and we didn't bother replacing it? Or were we just sucking too much silt, which
Yeah.
would have meant that it's not the correct formation to put a well in?
Yeah.
So there's all questions I think I'd like.
And with your permission, we'll reach out to Jamie.
Yeah,
And ask the question too.
Yeah, if
It's,
you could.
that well was not in service,
It's been on for quite a
20
while,
years
right?
or so,
Yeah.
or plus, because since I've been working with you, it's never been in service.
Right. And I'm not sure, I think we have room to still have a 400-foot sanitary area, the maintenance garage, and still do a treatment plant building. And I know you said it would be over by where the gravel pit was.
You know, that's what we were
I'm
initially
wondering
thinking,
if-
but we haven't really picked a spot, because we
Right.
haven't really walked out there to say, oh, this would be a good area in that
Right.
area, huh?
So that was another reason we wanted to not do it over there, was because that's a nice gravel pit area
Right,
to
yeah,
have.
right.
And it'd be nice if we could keep that. So I don't know if there's another place on the site we could squeeze a building in
Yeah.
on that site.
Well, it sounds like it's worth looking at closer.
Just
so-
because it's got the biggest bang for the buck, I think.
Oh, yeah.
If all these other questions did play out.
Right. Yeah, you're saving the iron and manganese, half the raw water main, and the PFAS portion of that well.
Right,
It's a big number.
right.
We've got monitoring wells out there too, we could probably
At the
use.
gravel pit area.
Oh, maybe that
Well, I mean, if we were to take, well, 3 offline, right? Because of iron manganese.
yeah, that's like the highest
Right.
untreated iron and manganese.
The question is, does the warrant article then still apply? Because it authorized for the total of 10.9 for filtration of PFAS and iron manganese. So we may or may not actually be buying ourselves that out of jail card that we're looking for.
I think that would be an easy sell to go back to the customers
Right,
and
because
say,
we're saving money.
we're
But,
saving you, we're not saving you anything, but we're, the $5 million extra is actually applied to the original cost instead of,
I'm just saying, the article as it's
it would
written
have to be
right now,
amended.
you know, we probably can't just
Right,
splurge on those 10.9 by cutting out one filtration out of, you know, one contaminant out of the filtration and just using it for the other contaminant. That's just a question that
I think an article would
that we
need to
can
be
do.
amended
It would have to be amended, I'm sure.
at the annual meeting, I think.
So here's another one I just kind of thought of, just coming down the same line as you, but to get rid of the iron and manganese treatment, has there already been any talk about re-drilling another well near well 3, but more inland, so you're not sucking,
Right
you
out
know,
of the,
while you're not, you're getting to influence the pond, you know?
Yeah.
Has there been any talk about moving that in another 150 feet or something like that?
not that I'm
Closer to
aware of.
the new water treatment plant that we'd be doing, and if you did that, then you could get rid of and if you could get rid
If
of the
there
iron
was-
and manganese.
Right,
I know when we did the borings out there for the building, we had, you know, gravel, so it seems like that whole big, you know, hilly area that we're gonna build a treatment plant, this is all gravels, you know? So
Right.
I didn't know if any,
Not that I'm aware of, but yeah, that's
Well,
a good point.
These are all good though, because I think that was the whole point is what we need to look at to see if we can find some different ways to chop this up.
It almost sounds like this would make sense to have Jamie involved too, right?
On that
Yeah.
question, for sure.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll reach out to them.
No, what I'm saying is, you know, if we have another work session or something, maybe
Yeah.
bring everybody together, so we don't have any delays.
Yeah. Another one that we had listed down there was pavement. You know, again, it's probably a nicety. Most of your facilities, all of them, I don't think really have any pavement. I think 7 and 8 just has it up against the building, but the gravel drive-in is not paved, so there's an option. The ones that are listed below were ones that I think your staff or came out of the work session we had on Friday. What about these kinds of things? So we haven't looked at those yet, but they're just ones that we will, to see if there is any potential savings or good reasons to not include them or to find changes there.
When it comes to radios, you have 75,000. I'm just curious, what's special about the radios? I mean, I don't know. Compared to
So the radios you have right now, they're obsolete. You can't get them anymore, or it's very hard to get them. So when we were talking with Ron about that, when do you upgrade?
But these
them?
aren't these kinds of radios. These aren't these are the SCADA radios on.
Radios, yeah, radios for the SCADA system.
They're not.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So then you have to, you can't just get new radios over this one and use the old ones there. They have to be the same one. So when we were talking with Ron, when do you think it would be a good idea to do the upgrade? Is it worth doing it, you know, with 4 and 5 when you're doing 7, 8? And he said, why don't we just do it at the end when we have them all? And so,
Right, but some of these items might be, you know, they should be capital reserve.
yeah, so
items,
that's
not
that's
exactly
exactly
right.
it. Yeah.
project items.
Because this is not just 2 and 3.
Right,
It was
exactly.
It was every.
But it makes sense that, you know, timing wise, that it is done then. It makes sense throwing it into the project, but it wasn't in the original estimate when we, you know,
Right.
or the cost when we put that together.
So what we want to do is listening to some of your feedback, and it sounds we're getting some, is to use that to come up with some numbers and have 2 or 3 work sessions, hopefully in
Yeah.
advance of the next commissioners meeting, to come back and say, here's what these worked out to be. Let's make some final decisions so we can move on.
What was the date you set that you wanted feedback on this,
The
2
ninth.
preliminary report?
10th, but yeah.
January?
January 10th.
But that was just technical review more. It wasn't the value
Okay.
engineering piece.
That's right.
Yeah, it was more just give us comments on the design. They may have, hopefully they'll come up with some, but I think separately we want to have a little process where we have 2 or 3, couple work sessions anywhere where we do hammer this out.
I think that's
With Jamie.
yeah. I think that's kind of where I think we almost have to like just hold at where we're at right now and kind of step back and think about more big picture items to figure out, does it make sense to, you know, make some major changes to save some major money and then continue with whatever we
Right.
decide to go from there. So I know we were on a track to keep everything going in the design going over where we had this planned and
Yeah.
but with these numbers, I think we gotta kind of step
I
back.
think that's really smart, Don.
Yeah.
And I think the
Even
time
if
is going
it's
to be
gonna-
well worth it.
Even
And it's
if
not going to be a lot of time. A
No,
month or
I
two.
know, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, even if it throws a month or two,
Yeah,
it's
but it's the right thing to
for
do.
multiple millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It'd be foolish to charge ahead without considering the implications of that. And I don't like, all along, we've been trying to keep the schedule expedited as
Right.
much as possible, but we're at a point now where it's important that we really think about.
Well, also, to that point though, I think 7 and 8 can track a little bit
I
different. So
agree,
We
yeah.
could make quicker decisions on 7 and 8 and keep that going.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
have 4 and 5, 7 and 8, and even if 2 and 3 drags a little bit longer, it's
I was only
gonna-
talking about 2 and 3.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there,
Yeah.
there
But
you
we
go.
need to
Yeah.
we need to make those decisions fairly quickly on.
Right.
7
Still
and
need to
8.
make decisions on 7 and 8, but I think those are easier to make.
I do too.
Yeah.
There's less things to
'Cause we're-
decide.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Water Engineer, so between 4 and 5, 7 and 8, 2 and 3, how how does the ratio, like, is there some kind of ratio we can,
Of yield, you mean, or?
no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking while I'm talking, so this doesn't work.
I have one. You wanna normalize the cost?
No, what I'm
Okay.
saying is, so if we are delaying 2 and 3 because we have big decisions to make, right? Okay,
I see.
but we're charging ahead with 4 and 5 as we are, and 7 and 8 for sure as well. How do they mix within the distribution system?
I think
That's what I
2
wanted
is
to ask.
definitely the biggest yielding well by far.
Now, I guess what I'm asking is, I know that there's some shift within the system,
Or where
which
you,
wells,
where, like,
which recipients, which
so
consumers are
whoever's in the
getting.
north is gonna get a little bit better water, and whoever's
Correct.
in the south's gonna get a
That's
little
what
bit of
I'm
better
asking.
water, and the people in the middle are gonna
Right.
get
In the
more
middle,
of
the middle is pumped into the high distribution zone too.
yeah.
So I guess maybe in other words,
Most of it
if,
comes from the
who's
central,
who's receiving most water of 2 and 3 out of 2 and 3?
Right.
Probably immediately around the wells
Yeah.
2 and 3, and then
Yeah.
the high distribution zone.
The only way to know that for sure is to do what we call the extended time simulation hydraulic modeling.
Mhm.
Big word for just putting the hydraulic model together, which
Mhm.
isn't set up that way to do the diagonal curves, the pumping rates, and the demands, so that you can see where this water goes.
I guess what I'm saying is we have to make sure that if we are delaying 2 and 3 significantly, we have to maybe think about what does this mean for those people that are being most affected by it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, and certainly you know it's going to be the ones around too.
Yeah,
If we
close to your
go this
tank,
route.
too,
Yeah.
But
But it would-
that's a hard thing to even model.
Oh, it
because-
is.
It is, and we,
It's
it
very
would,
hard.
and it would be sort of a, I don't wanna say guesstimate, but it's,
I mean, where does your demand
it's-
occur?
that's exactly it, yeah,
Sure.
it's, you come up with some estimates of where it would go, but there's certainly not gonna be any
Yeah.
level of accuracy is.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think
the
I
best
asked-
thing you'd have, but it's
Yeah.
still gonna, you
It-
have to
it's-
take it with a grain of salt.
I still think by bringing 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 online, once they're treated though, it's gonna be better than it is today, for sure, obviously.
Sure.
But, I don't know how much mixing.
Yeah, and I
you're gonna
think,
get.
I think you would probably, once those came online, you would probably be using those a little bit
Yeah.
more than you would be using 2 and 3.
Right.
right.
You know, and then once 2 and 3 come online, then I assume everything's gonna be dropping down, you know,
Right.
capacity wise, the usage wise, yeah.
And I mean, right now, we actually shut well 3 off during the winter typically. I don't know if it's off right now, but,
It's not, it's cycling a couple of hours each day,
yeah, so it's minimal use basically.
yeah.
But it's in the summer, obviously, when
When you
we
need
need
that.
them on.
Right.
But again, you're spending money for iron and manganese treatment on a well that right now you only need for part of the time. If it's working now, I just don't know if it makes sense to spend all that money on it. It's the highest sodium and chloride well, I think, too. And you guys, I don't think anybody saw that presentation from Jamie, but that's eye-opening. There's some serious sodium and chloride issues that we have to deal with. So anyways, I'm just kind of rehashing the same thing over again, but
Yeah, so I think, you know, in terms of keeping 7 and 8 moving, then we sort of need
Yep.
sort of quicker
Sure.
decisions
Buffer.
on, do we reduce the building? And do we do and the lag vessel will probably be less of a, because we're gonna still be designing the same building.
right.
But if we're gonna be reducing the building, we need to kinda know that quick,
When
so we
you,
can,
yeah, so,
we're supposed to be submitting 90%
End of
around,
January.
yeah, January, I think, yeah, 2025, somewhere in that ballpark, so.
so you need
we
to
are-
know that definitely before our next meeting.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I'd really like to know that before the first of the year. So we gotta chop that down, then,
We're talking 7 and 8 now. for
yes,
now.
we
Yeah.
are, yeah.
Okay.
And I need to get my subs working on that.
I mean, it'd be good to
Yes.
get everybody together on that, probably at a work session, and maybe if some of the commissioners can attend, and Ron, and,
We might be able to pull one off the week
You know,
of New Year's or the week after Christmas. There's a holiday in there, but maybe we can. Maybe
Yeah,
we
that
get
would be
something.
good just before, like, yeah, right before New Year's, like
Yeah.
30th or 31st.
Yeah, cause
Yeah,
the
30th
second
and
is,
31st, we could do that.
Yeah, the first is,
Yeah, that Monday or Tuesday.
Wednesday.
So well 7 and 8, really the only thing to think about is do we shrink the building and not put the floor space for future anion resin tanks?
Right, yeah.
And to less of an extent, whether we have a lag vessel or not, at least that way you can move forward with the building
footprint, right,
size and
yeah.
all that. And we can even bid it with an alternate lag vessel or not.
Yes, it could, yeah. Yeah,
I would consider reducing the building size for the anion future vessels, but I would definitely wanna build enough capacity for a lag
Yeah.
vessel for carbon.
and then if you're gonna be giving us, your comments by the 20th, or by Christmas, right, on the 60% design, there might be some other things that we come up at that work session to say, hey, we wanna do this or do that, so those things can be also discussed at that same work session. And we can tweak up that design, yeah.
I'm available.
Do you wanna target, are we trying to target a time?
Yeah, it's kinda what I'm
Yeah.
Might as well
wondering.
set one. What's that?
What date did you say?
First or second, not the first
No,
or second, the
30th or
30th or the
31st.
31st.
New Year's Eve
Yeah,
meeting,
pre-party.
the sound of that.
I'm free both days, I know that.
I know I just set a meeting on the second for one of my, for Board of Selectmen's meeting, so I know Boscoon's working on the second, but let's see.
I'm not sure if Don's gonna be able to work on the second.
Takes that long?
Yeah, I'm
I
free.
have a selectmen's meeting on the 30th that night,
Which one?
Plasta,
Oh, yeah. At night, yeah.
at night, yeah. Yeah, I'm available too. Would you rather target a Monday or Tuesday? Would you rather target a Monday afternoon
That sounds good.
as opposed to the 31st? Yeah.
There's nothing on our schedule there, right, that you handed out tonight, it conflicts with that?
How about we target Monday at 2, assuming it'll take 2 hours to get us out at 4, if it runs a little bit late, we're still out of here by 5. Does that make sense?
That's up to you, if you can make it.
We'll target that Monday at
Yeah.
2. That'll be
Monday,
the
2?
30th at 2. I think the focus will be 7 and 8, and then if we have time, we'll have some discussions on 2 and 3 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be
Of
good.
course we will, because I think you want to tackle this discussion.
If we're getting all together, it makes sense
Yeah.
to kinda hit it all,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
At least get some more preliminary discussions out and get more of ideas and that type of thing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for that meeting, I'm still not sure this well 7 and 8 for lag vessels, you got 1 to 1.5 million. That's just for the lag vessel itself, right? That's not, we're not talking about shrinking any floor space.
Yeah, that's part of the building.
I would have said that's part of shrinking the floor space too.
Well, that 1.1 to 1.5 includes the larger building,
Right.
yeah. So if you,
So even if we shrink the floor space that's now targeted for anion vessels,
yeah, we can,
and we drop a lag vessel,
yeah,
that combined, that's a savings of 1 to 1.5 million?
Yeah, I think that takes floor space reduction to get that number.
yeah.
We'll double check that and we can have better numbers for you in advance of the meeting, but I don't think just taking vessels gonna save you $1 million, $1.5 million. You gotta take the building down too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. But that's still leaving floor space for the lag vessel.
yes,
Yeah, so if the building's 60-foot addition, 48 I think is what it is right now,
Mhm.
48-foot addition, say we make it 30, still gives you the 2 spots for the GAC
Yeah.
yeah.
or whatever, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Wonder too if the resin can be at grade in the future too,
It potentially could,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's true, so we
Yeah.
probably wouldn't need all that head height.
Could
Right.
do that,
You
yeah.
wouldn't if it's
Yeah.
resin. There we go, we just saved.
Yeah, the only thing is if you needed space from your filter, from your GAC to the wall, just say you want 6 feet, you could put a resin filter right there. right? But now if you have it above grade, you're gonna need your 6 feet down below than your 6 feet above, right? So you still, you know, I think you would still have to get down there.
That might be cheaper than an 18-foot excavation.
It might be, but I think you'll also still get into your, having to do the, ramp aggregate piers too.
Yeah.
You know, even if you build it higher, because you're gonna need that support. Like they said, if you had an earthquake, it was, you know, your building could settle down, I mean, would they say 2 feet or something like that?
Liquefaction.
I think they said something about, you know,
Remember
that's
that?
why we did that, you
We
know,
all
so,
learned about it.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's really what we had. I don't know if there's any other questions. I wanted to say too that some of the things that we talked about at the last work session is there were certain assumptions that maybe we made that, you know, that are turning out to be more. There's other assumptions in the rates that maybe we made that we can probably help soften a little bit too. For example, we had assumed level principal payments in the rate study we did, but if we amortize them, same term, same interest rate, your payments are less. Long run, you pay more interest, but the impact to the rates is less. And the incremental interest charge isn't that big. So that's one. We talked or mentioned, hey, if we're gonna be increasing capital costs, but we wanna keep things rate neutral, maybe we can just extend the term to 25 years, right? So instead of 20, or you had even maybe 30,
Well-
but you know. So there's those things we can look at too.
Right. But the mandate is for a budget, not for a rate. You know, the petition warrant articles.
No, but
for-
I've never been to a meeting where they didn't wanna know what the rate impact was
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
be.
sure.
So,
Sure.
if we're going in saying we have to bring in 3 million more, and we can sort of present it as rate neutral or close, we're gonna have a better chance.
Yeah, no, for sure, yeah.
But you're right, it's the capital cost that counts right now. So I'm just saying there are some of those tools that we could look at too.
Okay, alright, let's do it.
But you can't spend any of this without the vote.
Yeah, so
And-
that's why it's important, 7 and 8, we square that away, cause that's gonna have possible implications in March.
Right, because
For
you might
warrant
have,
articles.
if you do, you would have to have some kind of a warrant article, at least we're thinking about, you would have a warrant article for 7 and 8, if we're, proceeding
We
with
need
the design that
additional.
we have right now.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and it's written down here, I forgot to mention it, but we didn't talk about it today, and we don't have to, but we do at some point need to talk about the GAC changeouts. And I think a lot of that will have to do with the injunction and the standards and so forth, but those are gonna be one of the biggest cost impacts in terms of O&M and rates. So maybe we can touch on that on the 30th as well. Because we do need some guidance on that. We need some guidance from you guys on how you wanna handle that.
Did we think about, well, 7 and 8, about using the existing basins for carbon instead of having to build a new basin, carbon backwash?
That was one of the things we were
Looking
considering,
into
we
that.
also, posed that question to, Mally too. Yeah,
Okay, just making sure you're
yeah,
looking into that, cause that saves some money there.
yeah. We're also looking at shifting, if we do need a new basin, instead of, putting it where we were thinking about behind the building, which would be in the shorelands, protection
More
area.
permitting.
Then, yeah, if we put it on the opposite side of the road from the treatment plant, there's an area there that would be outside the shorelands, and we wouldn't get into any of the permitting and all the requirements of that too, so. It would just be a little bit more pipe, but it'd be really the same work. And in some ways, it might be better, because the infiltration we had back there, because we are butting up against the wetlands, a very long skinny one, so it'd be a little more efficient to get something a little, closer to square, for maintenance. And then also, it leaves that room in the back to do anything else. If you do have to get frac tanks in there and all that kind of stuff. We did leave an area in the back for a crane pad and areas for some frac tanks, so, if you ever got into that. But you do have sort of a limited site there.
Okay. While you guys are here, just a couple things I was gonna mention. I know you had done some PFAS graphs for us in the past, just I think PFOA and PFOS. And I noticed those went to, I think it was like just November of 18 or something, about a year ago. We've got a whole another year of data now. I don't know if that's something you could update those graphs.
Isn't that Emery and Garrett?
It was, I don't know, are they still doing that?
Yeah, I send them the data every time the results come in.
Oh, they do? Okay.
If
haven't
not,
seen any
if
for a
not,
year,
to answer
so-
your question, we'd be happy to do it, cause we got the chart set up, so.
Yeah.
I know in your presentation, you only went to 2018 too,
Yeah.
cause that's what we gave you.
And that was out of the, slides
I
from
know,
the,
yeah, cause that's all we had. It illustrated the
meeting.
point, but it's a year old.
And then just one other thing, I don't know if it's really related to you guys, but you know how we sample for well 7 and 8 treatment plant, that blended sample, PFAS? Why do we really need to do that?
We don't need to, it was just something that we started doing to see what the blend was, with the
Right.
feeding in at the same time.
See if green sand affected the removal or anything, which it doesn't, but,
Nothing of significance.
I mean, it's only $300 a month to save, but I don't know, I'm just wondering, we throw it out there, do we just bother not taking that sample anymore, or?
Let's go, it's a requirement, well, for compliance, it's a requirement, 2, 3 in the treatment plant. So, depends on what they do.
7 and
with
8 in the treatment plant, you mean?
No, 2, 3 in the treatment plant, it's all treated water for compliance.
For PFAS?
Well, PFOA, PFOS, the 4. So
Is that still in effect even with the new MCLs? Because what I've heard is
not.
it's not in effect.
No, I got an email from Chip Mackey saying that,
Right.
yeah, it's not enforceable. So, we already sampled, and those went off, so we were doing the compliance samples separate from the 32 compounds, so that we were still collecting data consistent with how we've been collecting data, so there's
Yeah.
apples to apples all along the way. So, the 32 compounds, isotope dilution, that's what we've been doing along the compliance samples. They have to use the 537 method. So we're just doing the 4 on those, and that way we're still have apples to apples with the other sites.
You're doing the 4 on which sample?
So for compliance, for the 4 regulated, somewhat regulated compounds, for those 4, you have to use the 537 method. It's required, because Eurofins isn't, accredited for the other method.
Isotope.
So isotope dilution we're using on the other ones just because for general system evaluation. So that goes into the one-stop database under general system evaluation for the 32 compounds, and the other ones go in to the drinking water, groundwater compliance database.
All right. So we're not required to sample, I think right now we're sampling the treatment plant PFAS for all the 32 compounds, I believe, right?
Yep.
I guess my point is every time you look at them, it's always like an average of well 7 and 8, which is you would expect, so it's kind of like a pointless sample in my mind now that we've got enough history to see that it's generally just an average of the 2 wells. I'm just wondering, does it make sense to save $300 a month just to not sample that well?
Would Chip answer that question, if you could eliminate that as a sample point?
We can, we don't have to, because we're sampling on our own right now, we're paying for them all.
Oh,
It's not-
because of the injunction, but, yeah.
But the compliance, that's the compliance only will allow us to take it from well 2 and 3 treated water in the treatment plant, which is treated water. They don't wanna see well 7 and 8, so that's why I still continue sampling those, but that brought into some confusion because one's one method, one's the other method, one's compliance, one's not, and they both have different forms. So we decided to keep our bundle of 5 sites together, sample the 32 compounds, let that do its own thing, and then deal with the compliance sampling separately. So that
So-
there was a division there, there's not
So that you
trying
can
to
do
figure out
anything you want
methods.
on the monthly sampling,
Mm-hmm.
cause she's set up the compliance stuff separately, so. Sounds like.
I don't know, just something, it's $300 a month, but it just seems like we're taking the sample, and what does it ever doesn't really mean.
So I guess the
anything.
only, probably the savings you get, instead of doing the treatment plan at 32, do you do it with 32 chemicals?
32 for all 5 sites.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that maybe you get rid of that, and then when you're doing your compliance one, you gotta just do the 4.
the 4,
So you
yeah.
could
Yeah.
potentially save a little bit.
I
there, yeah.
just, I'm trying to keep everything consistent.
Yeah,
So are we gonna
I would agree.
have
Yeah.
problems?
Don't
I-
break the system.
No, I wouldn't change it, and because the article says reduce all PFAS, not just the 4 regulated. There's a whole bunch of things that we just gotta make sure work.
I'm just looking at, the DES is saying you gotta sample PFAS quarterly, and we're sampling
Monthly.
monthly plus a blended sample, and I'm like, are we really spending too much money sampling that we don't need to? But
Yeah.
I kinda like the monthly information, cause then you kinda really know how it changes and, but, I don't know.
You'd save $3,000 more if you just got rid of the blended one.
Yeah,
And you don't have any less information, probably, is your point. You're the same.
alright, that's, I think all I have for you guys. Any other questions for, Underwood?
Okay, all right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And I brought,
Thanks for coming.
I brought more of the plans, the right one.
Alright.
So I'll leave those here. I see the other ones here. So you'll have 3 full sets of the site plan, the 2 floor plans, and the building cross section. You'll have that here. So if anybody wants to take things, free to look at them.
So you're at a holding pattern on that site plan right now until we
Yes.
figure out,
Yeah, till we
What's
start
going on?
talking. Yeah.
Kind of sitting tight on everything until the second, and we'll run some numbers so we have
Yeah.
better information.
Right, yeah.
But
Okay.
we won't be doing much redesign at this point.
Not the second, the 30th, right?
Yeah.
There-
There
yeah.
it is. What did I just
I
say?
thought you said the second.
I did. We'll see you on the 30th.
alright,
Merry Christmas.
Thank
All right.
Yeah, Merry
Have a
Thanks
nice
a lot.
holiday, guys. Merry Christmas.
Safe travels home.
alright, so,
We're only an hour behind.
alright, moving along. I think it'll be clear. Thanks.
That was probably our fault.
So we're going to review a final agreement for the purchase of a conservation easement in Hollis, New Hampshire, adjacent to our wells 7 and 8. And just for the public, the MVD started looking at the Wright property, WRIGHT, it's the name of the current owner, back in 2013 as an additional source, as well as conservation land to help protect MVD wells 7 and 8. This property is a 28-acre site located off South Merrimack Road in Hollis, New Hampshire, and it's adjacent to Witches Brook and MVD wells 7 and 8, and our treatment plant at well 7 and 8. This property lies within the 400-foot radius of well 7, sanitary protection area, and almost entirely within the wellhead protection area for wells 7 and 8. So that's that. We've got an addendum to a purchase and sales agreement. So the purchase price that was previously agreed to was $250,000 for that, an easement on that 48 acres. A deposit of $25,000 was already paid to the buyer previously. And we'd be looking at an additional payment of $100,000 to be paid to the seller at the time of the transfer. Then there would be a balance of $125,000 that would be paid in the future. My understanding is if we ever pursued any kind of development on that site, we're thinking of putting another well out there. There actually was another well drilled, but it's not in service at this time. So we did meet with the Wrights last month, I believe it was, and all these terms were agreed to. So there was some additional language that was added in here was to, the seller wanted to reserve the right to practice agriculture on the easement, and we added, so as long as it doesn't interfere with the installation, operation, and maintenance of the facilities, and that the use shall be undertaken in accordance with the regulations of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So the term agriculture, this is what was added, was so that it's limited to haying, mowing, or spruce tree farming. And I specifically wanted to exclude any kind of grazing animals, because that's not a compatible use with, in the vicinity of a existing well that we have at well 7 and 8. Tree farming to be conducted in connection with a licensed forester, and the buyer shall post the property as a watershed area and be restricted with no hunting and no trespassing signs. So that's basically it. I'm not sure if there's any more
Yeah, so by sign.
discussion we need, or we're just gonna agree to sign this right now, or?
Yeah, I mean, the terms have already been outlined there in the minutes from last month, so, I mean, that's all just on paper. We have a surveyor that's gonna go out and do, a survey of the land so that Greg can do the easement deed, so we'll get this signed, and then when the survey comes in, it'll move forward with the rest of that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? So you don't need us to take any action on anything right now, right?
No, but it wasn't, no, it was agreed to last meeting, so we're all set.
And who is authorized, Ron authorized to sell his, to sign?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so, we can move on further with, Board of Commissioners to hear update on St. Gobain water main extensions and private well hookups.
It was really easy, the last two were done on 12/10, that's it.
So we're all done now?
That's it, yeah.
Wow. And those needed directional drilling or something, right, to finish?
Yeah,
Good.
trees moved under a house, under a driveway.
Wow.
Yeah, they were the tough ones, so, but all done.
And that's all stuff that's covered by the St. Gobain issue, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, anybody on that one?
Mhm.
No? The next item, to review, minutes from the November 18 public session. I think the only question I had was related to the description that a viva voce roll call was conducted. And I'm just thinking the word roll call may not need to be there.
I sent you an email on that, did you not get that?
I did, and I don't agree with it.
Oh.
I don't know if you've got a legal interpretation of that or not, but
Then let Amanda.
Per Robert's rules, it's truly just a vote by voice versus a vote by ballot. So it can stay, but I can remove it if you'd like.
I don't really care. I just thought a roll call meant an individual statement by each individual commissioner, which I don't think we specifically did that, but I would prefer to take it out, but if you guys wanna leave it in, I don't really care. That's the only comment I had on the minutes.
Isn't Robert's rules all about minute taking and?
Yeah, it is. I can grab that information for you if you want to decide.
And
next
if,
month.
yeah, well, keep it in if you think that it's, I just look up roll call on Google and it talks about individuals putting their hand up saying aye individually, but not as collectively like we typically vote.
I guess we just need to have it defined before the next time that one of us is attending remotely.
Line 31 actually calls it out as a, how do you say that, viva voce?
Right.
Roll call.
So that is just by voice. That's translated to by voice. So that's all. It's a different roll call when done with electronic.
So let me ask this
You
question,
need to
what
state your name.
what would it say when Wolf was in Germany and we had to each say yes? How would that be different than it's
It's-
written here?
It's still a voice roll call, but everybody's name is required to be stated.
And is that, that was reflected in the minutes when you did it that way?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I still don't agree with it, but I'll
I'll send it to you.
if it's written somewhere in a specific place that talks about meeting minutes, then I'm sure they're smarter than me.
I will get it to you for sure. And you'll just see all.
So after all that, is there any other edits or suggestions to modifications to the minutes?
I would
From,
like to
uh,
make a motion to seal the non-public minutes.
Those
which is,
are,
I think, part of this.
yep, that was the
Vote.
ones that were done at today's non-public session. So move to seal the non-public minutes from today, December 16th.
And actually the ones from the last one too.
I
Right?
think we,
Those have been sealed
They happen?
yeah,
from November's meeting.
I thought we had one that we needed to seal yet.
it was just
Didn't we
today.
say that
I
earlier?
think.
Okay.
All right, motion made by Will,
Second.
second by Joe. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of sealing the minutes signify by
Aye.
saying aye. No opposition or abstentions, that carries 4-0-0. So if someone wants to offer any comments or corrections to the minutes today for the public session on November 18, or if someone wants to make a motion to accept those minutes,
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of
November 18.
November 18th.
Seconded.
Motion by Joe, second by Ken. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Homer,
Aye.
Aye. No opposition or abstentions, so that's 4-0-0 on that. And, let's see, what else do we have here?
We said
Um,
thank you later.
Yeah, so at this point, we're just looking at old business.
Yeah, I have something, so there's a handout from Emery and Garrett,
Oh,
change
yeah.
order number 1.
Yeah.
He's been working on PowerPoint presentations and research and stuff for the sodium and chloride reduction project. Did a presentation back on the 6th here with some of the stakeholders, townsfolk, police, DPW. They have asked that Bill Boyd was here from town council. He asked that the presentation also be done to the town council and then the planning board. So this is a change order to Jamie's contract, to add in those PowerPoint presentations.
So that'd be two separate meetings, right? One with the council and one with the planning board?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like that's the way it's gonna go, because, the town council's in the middle of budgeting, et cetera, they don't have time right now on
Yeah.
their schedule, so it's gonna be postponed, and then the planning board, will most likely be separate.
And I'm having a really hard time with that. A $4,800 change order for taking the same PowerPoint presentation and changing the top slide with the date and the audience name and
And then-
Well, that's also
Or maybe I'm
accounting for the PowerPoint, the putting together of the PowerPoint presentation, that wasn't in his original contract.
it was not.
No.
So
It wasn't?
that's what I thought it was. So, I
I'm
mean,
not
4,800
thinking
is
wrong.
basically 3 days of work, 3 to 4 days of work in my book. That's 3 to 4 days of work, and I can slap a PowerPoint presentation with the data that he already has together in a couple of hours. But it just seems,
And it is coming to present it to the town council and planning board.
right,
I
but that's,
understand, and that's,
right, but that's a couple of hours, you know. Granted, that might, I don't know, yeah, okay, he's coming from
probably
Meredith,
coming
okay, so there's some travel involved, I don't know, it's just,
it does seem a little
it's
bit,
a chunk of money for a couple of hours of work, in my opinion. And maybe I'm not understanding the scope, but
I don't know, maybe,
Under the, schedule, I think it's page 5, arrangements are currently being made to conduct these presentations in January and February. Each meeting is anticipated to cost $2,400 to include time and expenses.
yeah, but again, I mean, a lot of this data is available to him, right? A lot of this, it's not like he has to create slide after slide after slide, he has to,
where were you just reading that, Jill?
page
Page
5.
number 5, under schedule.
Oh.
I don't know, $2,400 for a meeting. I don't know, I would like to know more about this.
I mean, I don't think it's out of line to ask him for his breakdown of hours, estimated hours. But I guess the issue is if we wanna get on the agendas and deliver these presentations, if we aren't authorizing this tonight, then we gotta authorize it in January.
I mean, to be honest, this is being presented to us without really any, I don't know. I don't know the history of this, I don't know where it's coming from, who asked for this, what has been ordered from him before that.
Well, we authorize him to do this basic amount of work.
Right.
So we did authorize that, and
Right.
now he, basically by doing 2 additional presentations,
It was, I believe it was extra from the original contract.
Right, the original, if you start at page 2, this is the
Right.
original contract, and then he's put in red what tasks are done, it's gonna be revisited at a later date.
Yeah.
So it's going through each of the tasks outlined, and then,
Right, but notice that everything, that almost here says to be revisited at a later date. Pretty much all these tasks are not yet included, right?
no, there's a lot
So-
more coming.
Right, there's a lot more coming, so, and I guess for me, again, to create a PowerPoint presentation of, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 slides, and presenting that at 2 different meetings, $4,800 is just a big amount.
Well,
wish
I guess
I think there was
question
55 slides.
It's definitely
It wasn't a quick presentation, but.
when you guys see it, you're gonna be blown away.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were there,
Okay.
that's right, forgot you were there, I'm sorry about that. But I guess what I'm wondering is does the 13.8 in the original contract amount, did that include the slides that he already developed? I think it did. I think it
Right.
included a PowerPoint presentation and a stakeholders meeting, right?
that was my understanding too.
That's task 1.
All right, I got the thing here too, where is it?
And he added in task 9 to do the additional presentations.
All right, so this is the thing here.
So he's basically saying to be additional 2,400 for each presentation.
I guess what I'm asking is how else was he supposed to present to us information with the work that we asked him to do? And in the process of presenting that information, did he not create a lot of that information, that visualization already? And then asking for another $4,800 to do that again, or to churn it over a little bit, and then presenting it at 2 one-hour meetings.
I guess I can see that number being justified if it includes the putting together the PowerPoint presentation and the 2 meetings, but if the 4,800 is just to present the PowerPoint at 2 meetings, that does seem quite a
I
bit
know that it was a
more.
lot more work than he thought it was going to be. There's a lot of comparisons in there that he had to be, dug through, so, the original meeting was just to talk, to stakeholders, and I think it ended up being a lot more of a presentation, because there were a lot of slides in there that had historical information and comparisons.
Right, and if he's trying to recover that, that's fine, but then I would like to know that. It just seems that 2 meetings for $4,800 is, I couldn't quote that.
Alright, so it looks like the 13.8 comes from task 8 previously, which was 8,300, plus task 1, which was 5,500. That's 13.8. And I don't see anything in here that says that he was going to create a PowerPoint presentation. So task 1, conduct meeting with select stakeholders, prepare meeting materials, and letter report of findings. And then task 8 is generate a map of sodium and chloride levels within wellhead protection areas using monitoring wells, conductivity, data logger, blah, blah, blah. So I guess
Yeah, but it also says here, you know, the stakeholder meeting, using the water quality graphs we have generated over this past year, which you already got paid for,
yeah.
right? So, I mean, there's document that there's data and graphs and so on that he's gonna be recycling, in my opinion. So, I don't know, I mean, I haven't talked to him as much as you guys have, so I'm not gonna stand in the way, but I just wanna raise a concern.
I'm okay with it. I don't know, what you've done. Excellent. Excellent.
It was a very powerful presentation. It's gonna be a very useful tool in trying to get the message across about the salt,
I think we have to
sodium
do that.
chloride issues. I wouldn't object to asking him just to estimate or break down where that 4,800 is coming from.
Mhm.
How many hours for what? Because I'm
And
not
he can
clear.
do,
if
he can do that verbally, we don't have to
Yeah.
add work to him, you know, next time we see him, we can break it down, I just
Yeah,
would like to know it a little bit better.
right. All right. Anybody want to make a motion to?
I don't think we had
To
any
move it?
motion, just ask him.
Yeah, well, to approve this. There's something we need to make a motion to approve this
Yeah,
change
'cause
order.
it's a change order on the contract.
So the change order is in the amount of $4,800 above the initial contract amount of $13,800.
Yeah. I'm okay with it.
You wanna make that motion then?
I make the motion.
Okay, so that's, is there a specific number he has on here?
$4,800
For you,
more.
Yeah, I know, I was just saying if there's a
Change.
Project number.
engineering project number or something that he goes by, or
There is
change
right
order.
here.
Yeah, so change order number 1 on project number 33.0083056.04.
That's the one.
All right, so that's a contract extension of $4,800. So that's motion made by Joe. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
I guess I'll make the second. And I'd like to amend that just by having him provide us with the task breakdown for that $4,800. So if you're okay with that amendment.
With that amendment, I'm gonna second it.
You okay with amendment?
With the amendment, I'm gonna second it. I know you're the chair, so I don't wanna make.
I don't know how do I
Where
approve
was
an
it?
amendment? Do you have to go back to you, or how does that?
Yeah.
So do
But we
you,
vote on the amendment first.
okay, so, the amendment was made by Wolf. Somebody second the amendment?
I'll second it.
All right, second by Joe. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 3.
Opposed?
Honestly, I guess, on the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment carries 4-0-0. Now back to the original motion with the amended motion, which was made by Joe, seconded by Wolf. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So that is 3-1-0 with Ken in the opposition.
Yeah, I think it's for 2 nights.
Understandable.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time too, but with the amendment, I can.
I at least
It's a
gives
vote
us-
of confidence, but
The-
in the future, we need to have a little bit more clarity on that.
Yeah, the thing that I struggle with is, I know Jamie's coming from a distance, and there's been other times where he's put proposals in front of us and hasn't been here to answer the question, so I think that's part of the challenge, is he could have probably explained to us in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and maybe next time we need to plan for this to for him to call in or something like that, so.
Or the other
Something like
thing, again, a lot of times we get these proposals from him on the day of the meeting and they're not in the packet, right? So if he got them to us sooner and it
Yeah.
was in the commissioner's
we can
packet, we
email
could
him,
have
yeah.
asked these questions.
Yeah, I agree.
We could have emailed them and asked them what the number's from, you know?
Yeah, and for the record, I think in the future I would reject that
Yeah,
unless that's being done. We need more clarity ahead of time.
I agree. I think in my view of how impactful that PowerPoint presentation is, I think it's worth the money to go ahead and display that to the planning board and the town council, because there are some actions that the town has related to the salt issue that we need to educate them. We need to educate all of the private salt applicators in this town as well, in our wellhead protection areas, whether it's Fidelity and all these big companies that you're gonna see in the PowerPoint presentation. There are certain areas that are highly susceptible, and there's indicators that point to some of these private landowners that have a big impact on our wells. So, with that being said, any other old business? Where are we now? I'm all lost. Let's see, I've got a couple things here I wanted to see here. All right, so we got our budget and the budget meetings are outlined on that calendar that you presented to us? Okay. I just wanted to see, has the post office gotten back to us about what they think might have happened with the,
They haven't been able to figure it out. We just sent out a batch, the 10th, one of the routes, and Amy took her time. She went through all of her numbers and everything, sent it over to Paper Graphics. They verified, they sent it through to count them. They're all there. They went to the post office, and we're waiting to see if we get any calls this month. We got it for last month.
We've got quite a few, not from,
That was from last month.
yeah, it's from we had the 10-10 delivery and the 11-10 delivery have been problematic. We had people coming in today saying they got their late notice
Right.
for the 11-10 delivery.
Today.
So we had two
Right, so it
different
was last
sessions.
month.
Yeah.
So, we just sent out the bills on December 10th, and we haven't had calls on those. It was all about them getting the late notice from the November one.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, and they've
Quite
had
a
nothing
few.
to offer us as far as an explanation.
yeah, that's why they never called
They
us
tried,
back. And-
Well, they did,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jill she dealt directly with the post office, the postmaster, I believe it was,
Are we keeping track that the people that are coming
yes.
are not the next round of billing?
yes, because it's different routes each month. So until we get to a second round of billing for that, next round of billing, we won't know if it's the same houses.
I'm just saying the word is out there that there's a problem, right? And some people may use that
Oh, yeah.
to extend the payment terms, right?
Yeah, we've been removing late fees and such, and
Right.
Amy's doing a great job of tracking everything and trying to keep it straight so that it's, once we go through each of the months to see if there's a pattern there. We've got people that are calling in and say, well, there's several times that my neighbor gets my mail and that type of thing too, so they wanna throw the post office under the bus, but they also, they're gonna figure out what's going on, cause they don't sort it in Merrimack, it goes to Manchester.
Right.
They don't even take it out of the bin, it just goes right up there.
But it was clearly an issue on their end because it was a multitude of people that had issues going on, not receiving bills and.
Well, we wanted to make sure it wasn't something on our end because
Yeah.
we could send things over to Paper Graphics electronically. So that's why we wanted to verify that this is the number that's going over, this is the number on the list, this is the number that's being printed out, and this is the number that's being mailed.
And then
we
after
did all
that, it's
that.
out of our hands at that point,
Yeah, and we did all that this month, so we'll see how it goes.
right?
And on that same note, so that wasn't part of the last meeting, right? But we had this email traffic with Amy, right? Setting up, and with Amy and you working on setting up some electronic bill pay feature.
Yes, we're looking into, we've done demos on 2 billing systems,
Mm-hmm.
so we are gonna be upgrading our system. It will be a process. We're hoping to decide on the firm in the next couple of months. Then we'd have to get on their implementation and installation schedule, which usually runs out anywhere from 8 months to a year. And we have to plan that at the times when they'll need us,
Right.
that we are available. So we have to work out all of our schedules, because there'll be times that they're just doing work, but we don't wanna go live in March, you know, when we have annual, the meeting to prepare for it and attend, so.
I kind of would like to have that a little bit higher on the radar, that we can maybe get an update, or you know,
Sure.
every other month or something like that, and then
Yeah,
or
most
you
definitely,
guys,
like I
you
said,
guys
we
can.
should be deciding, even this month,
Yeah.
so I'll update each time at the meeting.
Yeah, and if you guys need help, you know, I mean,
Yeah, definitely, yeah, we've both been
we
through.
want to be able to help you.
Yeah,
too.
we've both been through
So-
software implementations and upgrades, so, both Amy and I and Dave's had experience too, so.
I'm more talking about decisions, funds, and so on. So we, you know, I mean, we had a lot of customers asking for that kind of feature, that they can set up automatic bill pay and they don't have to worry about the mail anymore.
Both
And-
systems that we've finalized, having the choice between, have options far above what our current system does.
Right.
They are definitely, just multifaceted as far as all the different options that people want. A lot of people want the recurring bill pay, we just wanna set it up.
And what I'm
Forget about it.
and what I'm saying is, if we present this here more frequently, then we have the ability maybe to help with, you know, decisions on funds, or you know,
Mhm.
whatever is necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Where are we at? New business? Any other,
Get
superintendent report?
Yeah, just, so the CTD divers, their, conductivity, temperature, and depth, those are the ones that we're gonna be putting in certain areas around town to, help along the sodium and chloride project, monitor sodium and chloride, at each of the well locations. So, those have been ordered, they're coming in on Thursday, and, Emery and Garrett's going to coordinate with me to get those installed, and we're gonna start collecting data on those areas and, you know, monitor through the winter and see what changes happen.
Good.
We already talked about Jamie's presentation. So, Ron got an email from Michael Brooks from ATSDR. I don't know what that stands for, I know what they do, but I didn't write down what it means, so, we're gonna have a conference call with him. He's looking for data for modeling. Actually, DES requested that he evaluate potential doses to the public in the vicinity of, St. Gobain, so he's asking for all kinds of information. We'll have a conference call with him. It'll be run through Primex the same way, they've got all of our data, not Primex, Divine Element. And so we'll, run things through them, and he'll just authorize me to send out information. So it was supposed to be tomorrow, but we just couldn't coordinate with everybody's schedule, so we're waiting to find out when we're gonna have that conference call, but so we're working with them. And the last thing is, so it has to do with the Wright property next door, but the machine shop is being sold, and whoever is looking at it is looking for a variance to change it from residential. So Ron has written a letter of non-support, saying that, you know, this can affect, you know, our wells, and explaining about the wellhead protection area and that type of thing. So I know he had that drafted, but he didn't give me a copy before I left, so I'm not sure if it went out or if he's actually just waiting for a second set of eyes on it.
Do you know why they're trying to change it to industrial, or is it?
I'm not sure, they just said that they're looking for a variance.
So it's residential now, and they wanna change it to something else?
Yeah, and so what happened, the machine shop is here, and there's a big field in back of it as well, and that's right near our wells, so Ron's putting some pressure on Hollis, planning board, zoning board, to not make that decision. So, that's my last thing.
Okay.
Is
All
he
right.
gonna go to the meeting, or?
He's not sure he's gonna be able to make it, that's why he wanted to get the letter out first, and that way if
Okay.
he can make it, then he can, then he'll go.
Worst case, if he needs one of us to go, let him know.
Don's hating you right now.
I know.
You said it, you
He
go.
just volunteered for that.
Okay, questions from the public, questions from the press. Looks
Motion
like
to
that's
adjourn.
it, motion to adjourn by Joe,
Seconded.
So good at that.
second by Ken. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries 4-0-0.